People of the world, welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language, episode 322. Sorry for the little bit of silence there, a little bit of technical difficulty. We're live, in case you're wondering. What really is going on today? We got Facebook secret blacklist of dangerous individuals and organizations. That's the main story of the day. The intersection between things like, the FBI, CIA, and Facebook's incredible amount of information. To what degree can the government step in and expect to access that information? Just how much power does Facebook have, etc. Twitter will now let you remove followers without blocking them. So a way to kind of, back in 2004, you had a friend and you're no longer that friend and you don't want to block them. It's like a soft block. We'll dive into that. Additionally, Twitter will now tell you, all the red flags you need to watch out for, because obviously there are a lot of things like dating where things can get a bit rough. And let's start with the main story of the day. Facebook revealing secrets. Facebook's secret blacklist of dangerous individuals and organizations. This is from the intercept.com. To ward off accusations that it helps terrorists spread propaganda, Facebook has for many years barred users from speaking freely about people and groups it says promote violence. The restrictions appear to trace back to 2012, when, in the face of growing alarm in Congress and the United Nations about online terrorist recruitment, Facebook added to its community standards a ban on organizations with a record of terrorist or violent criminal activity. So there have been a number of things that are quite upsetting in the world that Facebook is related to. Things like genocide in Myanmar, riots on Capitol Hill. Facebook plays a role in all of these things. Facebook's DIO policy has become an unaccountable system that disproportionately punishes certain communities. And that is one of the main issues here. The other issue is, to what degree does the government simply walk into Facebook and say, here are things that we want answers to, give us the data. So this blacklist, for example, puts Facebook in a, quote, near impossible position by telling them they can't post about dangerous groups and individuals, but then refusing to publicly identify who it considers dangerous. So the point of all this is that these large companies like Facebook are collecting data that is essentially could save someone you love's life, right? So they know that there is someone out there that is planning to do something fairly terrible. And because the CIA, FBI may not have direct access to that data, Facebook is making the call. And so now, the governments of the world are asking Facebook, and not just the United States, mind you. They have access to, I forget the movie that Tom Cruise was in, when there was like pre-crime or thought crime. This is the closest you're going to get to that, which is, I bet there is an algorithm that Facebook can use that they can look at the language and the change in language over time of an individual and associate that with, say, a database of violent crime and begin to determine who is most likely to, say, exhibit domestic violence tendencies, or to shoot someone, or to steal something. This data, if you are, say, a parent who is trying to keep their kids safe, seems like a pretty obvious connection. If Facebook can work with authorities, then you can stop a lot of crime. Obviously, on the other side of this, you have some sort of dystopian nightmare hellscape where, you can't even post on Facebook, because every time you do, there is a cop looking at what you're doing. So it is wildly interesting that Facebook has a secret blacklist of dangerous individuals and organizations. Experts say, according to the article, the public deserves to see the list, a clear embodiment of U.S. foreign policy priorities that could disproportionately censor marginalized groups. So Facebook thinks that a group is dangerous. They think that that group is dangerous. And as a private company, they have a right to do that. If it's made public, then people can scrutinize why those people are considered dangerous. So on the flip side, If you think about the Communist Party back in the day, or the varying governments take on things like the hippie movement back in the 60s and the Black Panthers and this sort of stuff. History tells quite an interesting tale of racism and bigotry that is obvious years later, which is to say that Facebook may consider a group dangerous, marginalize them, and come to find that they were just a bunch of people that had absolutely no violent intentions, and that Facebook was just wrong. And unless they make that information public, how could we possibly know? The article goes on. Facebook's policy director for counterterrorism and dangerous organizations, Brian Fishman, said in a written statement that the company keeps the list secret, quote, because this is an adversarial space. So we try to be as transparent as possible. Apologize for the phone call. While also prioritizing security, limiting legal risks, and preventing opportunities for groups to get around our rules. So it's interesting that Facebook is fighting the same battles that law enforcement often face, which is, why don't you publicize everything? People are always telling law enforcement to tell us what's going on, stop hiding things, stop keeping things in secret. And law enforcement's argument to that is, this is an ongoing investigation. If we tell everyone about everything that's going on, the criminals are going to be able to easily skirt that which we are trying to do, which they mention here. Brian Fishman goes on to say, we don't want terrorists, hate groups, or criminal organizations on our platform, which is why we ban them and remove content that praises, represents, or supports them. It's pretty wild. I mean, there's a 350 person team of specialists that is focused on stopping those organizations. And ultimately, someone has to make a call. Whether or not that call is accurate is really an important question. And there's no way of knowing if they are or they are not, unless we have that data. So at this point, given the fact that Facebook is keeping these blacklists private, we simply have to go, either put faith in them or don't, I guess. And if you're banned, what's interesting about the ecosystem nowadays is that you can let everyone know, right? So it's not as if someone gets banned from Facebook and then the world has no idea that transpired. The world obviously knows through all the other social media outlets. On TikTok, for example, many folks after they've been banned will get a lot of popularity because they were banned. It is classic advertising to position yourself as someone that society has ostracized. You know what I mean? That is a classic human behavior. A lot of musicians are like that. You can think about Marilyn Manson, Nine Inch Nails, these sorts of characters. A lot of gangster rappers live off of that sort of identity. So saying that you've been banned often is a really great way to get more PR. So what do you think? Should Facebook release their secret blacklist of dangerous individuals to the public? Should it be shared with law enforcement? Why or why not? TechCrunch.com. Twitter will now let you remove followers without blocking them. After testing last month, Twitter is rolling out a feature to all web users that will let them remove followers without blocking them. This safety feature can be helpful if you want to avoid the repercussions of blocking someone. I am reminded of Reddit that has a shadow ban where you continue to post content. It's just nothing seems to be working. And it's odd that nothing is working and you're not sure why it isn't working. And you ultimately realize that you've been shadow banned, and it is an extra annoying way of being banned. Now, if you're the person trying to unfollow someone without the repercussions of blocking them, then, remove followers without blocking them, I get it. There are a lot of relationships here on planet Earth and a lot of different ways folks can react to negativity. And when I say negativity, I mean, if you block someone, I get it. I mean, but from that person's perspective, it's a fairly negative experience. And they may have emotional repercussions as to why that is. This is a quote soft block, which I don't know. Does it really help people's feelings? I guess the hope is that people simply don't realize they've been blocked, and then they never feel that negative emotion. It's like anything. It could make people more angry as they slowly eventually realize that they have been soft blocked. Um, you know, So it's one of those things where there is no panacea, but having the option, I think, ultimately is a good move. Twitter is doing everything they can to be able to stand in front of someone that's judging them by saying, look, we're giving you all the possible tools, but humans are humans and behavior is behavior. And as we all attempt to love one another more, these tools will always manifest in the ways that we are, which is to say that you can use a hammer to build a house, or you can use a hammer for much less constructive means. So I can't really criticize Twitter too much for this, you know, tool that they are attempting to make money off of. Lastly, today, Twitter will now now tell you all the red flags you need to watch out for. Twitter has become a sea of red flags, according to themarysue.com. Recently, all alerting users of a wide range of things, from men to avoid or moments to worry up. Excuse me. Um, so basically, this is a trend. I don't know if you're familiar with it. All these red flags popping up. It started on Black Twitter to share red flags in dating. Oh, geez. And like many Twitter trends, it morphed and took over all aspects of Twitter without anyone really knowing where it started. But the dating tweets did spawn into many sharing hilarious stories of dating and sharing things that people say in like, you should throw up some red flags. It's so funny. I was on TikTok the other day, and this woman shared a story of how she went on a date, and this guy picked her up, and they went to Taco Bell, and he ordered 100 tacos and in her car, and then he goes to grab his wallet, and he can't find it. Can't find his wallet, and so she ends up paying for 100 tacos, and they go back to this dude's house where his dad's there awkwardly, and he plunks the 100 tacos down on the table and says, "Let's feast." And like, this father is like leaning over the table, and it's just the most awkward thing. And she was sure that she was going to get killed because these people are psychopaths. I mean, there are a million stories like that, and it of course isn't all too surprising that that red flags are a very interesting way for people to share their particular experience on planet Earth. Today's episode is a short one. Let's recap. We got the blacklist from Facebook. I mean, look, these major corporations are going to have the most ridiculous amount of information, and it's not going anywhere. If you really do want privacy, I mean, you're going to have to go those extra miles, using things like DuckDuckGo, avoiding things like Facebook, watching what you post. My general rule of thumb is, if I don't want it to exist externally, I don't say it and I don't post it. But when you're 14, or you're dating someone, or you're meeting someone the first time, or you're talking about investing or emails, I mean, we live in a completely new environment. And a lot of people are falsely accused. And so you got to wonder if you make a post on Facebook that alludes to something, but it really has nothing to do with an actual crime, but it seems like it, you could find yourself in hot water. So at the end of the day, it can be a dangerous world out there, but try to fill your heart with love anyway, as best you can. TechCrunch.com, Twitter, letting you remove followers without blocking them. I get it. And finally, red flag meme on Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you're having a wonderful week. I hope everything in your life goes swimmingly. Remember that as thoughts cross your mind, you can choose to love them, or you can choose to be afraid of them. If you naturally are afraid of them, you can do your best to look at that thought and love it. And usually what happens, if you have a fearful thought and you love that thought, you'll realize that that fear is based somehow in some sort of positive framework. Like, if you're afraid of losing your job, for example, and you love that fearful thought, you may find yourself going, you know what? The reason I'm afraid of losing my job is because I actually do care about my job. I want to do well. And that's where the love resides, is in realizing that that fearful thought is actually foundationally based in love, because you want to do a good job and you ultimately are a good person. So love your thoughts. If you have any questions for me, you want to talk about marketing, we're doing all sorts of interesting stuff. We may have a client doing SEO for a cryptocurrency. So that's going to be interesting. I'll try to keep you updated on that. Things at the agency have been very good lately. We've closed a lot of business. Very excited about it. Seems like the economy is humming along quite nicely. The pandemic was rough, obviously, for everyone. But if you ever want to talk about marketing, why don't you shoot me an email, info@senditrising.com, info@senditrising, or join us for the live show, youtube.com/senditrising. If you want to find the show on Spotify or iTunes, just type in "marketing is a foreign language" and you'll find it there. You can listen to us live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, etc.